Taiwan. I'm Ethan Liu with 10 minutes of news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Taiwan is now investigating nearly 100 local politicians over their visits to China that could violate election laws. The authorities are warning that links like this are just one way that China is trying to interfere with the upcoming presidential vote. As part of our China Factor series, Rick Lauer looks at how this issue is splitting society.
At his temple in central Taiwan, Zheng Mingkun has long called on the local goddess of peace to safeguard his country. He's a religious leader here in Taiwan, but is also friendly with the Communist Party ruling neighbouring China, which claims Taiwan as part of its sovereign territory and threatens to take by force.
那台湾跟中国是不可分离的，本来就是一家人嘛。那为了这个打仗才分开。那我希望说，因为我们都是炎黄子孙的，这个是不能改变的。
Zheng's opinion is becoming less common in a country whose existence is constantly under threat by China. But despite political differences, the two countries share deep historical and cultural ties. This is one of the largest temples in Taiwan to the sea goddess Mazu, an important deity worshipped both here in Taiwan and across the strait in China. This traditional folk religion is just one of the many things the two countries have in common. In the name of cultural exchange, Zheng often visits China and even meets with top Beijing officials. Links like this are now under scrutiny in Taiwan. The government here says China could be using them to interfere in Taiwan's upcoming national elections. Now, nearly 100 local politicians are being investigated over trips to China, paid for by Beijing.
你去旅游啊，落地招待，当然一定有它的目的嘛，哦，那否则那所有的台湾人去大陆都全部落地招待就好啊。
What sort of relationship Taiwan should have with Beijing is defining the presidential race. The ruling Democratic Progressive Party candidate says Taiwan must beef up its defences to deter China, while the main opposition party, more friendly towards Beijing, says communication can avoid conflict. Both parties say voters are choosing between war and peace.
我对台湾民主有信心，因为我相信台湾人民对这块土地有一定的认可。
要看选民啊。 选民选对了，就是平安呐。
每一次到选举的时候，都是会有这样的情况发生。对，但是又是平安的，又度过一年。
For Zheng, the power of Mazu to maintain peace across the Taiwan Strait is larger than local politics.
那你今天你看加沙的土地还蛮大哦。那今天台湾四面是海哦，我们是没有路可以走。那今天我们不是怕战，我们是要可以大家坐下来稳定好好的谈。 他会看到台湾就是真正的这么民主、这么自由，这个叫互相的学习。
The risk of war with China has hovered over Taiwan for decades. For many here, it has become a part of everyday life. But the upcoming election forces voters to confront this uncomfortable status quo and ask whether Taiwan's future is really in its own hands. Klein Wang, Pichi Zhuang, and Rick Lauer in Dajia, Taiwan for TaiwanPlus.
While Taiwan's presidential elections are just 8 days away, one of the biggest issues of the race is how the country can ensure its security. Breen Thomas takes a look at what the candidates plan to spend on defense.
National security is one of the most serious issues facing Taiwan ahead of the upcoming election. And when voters head to the polls in January, they'll be deciding the future of Taiwan's defense. Faced with the threat of invasion from China, Taiwan has been increasing its defense budget over the last several years. But Beijing still spends 16 times more than Taipei does. That's why the candidates for the opposition Kuomintang, or KMT, are talking less about how much they plan to spend if elected and more about what they plan to spend the money on. The KMT's Hou You-yi and Zhao Xiaokang want to focus more on deterrence and stopping China from landing troops on the island. It's an approach highlighted by Zhao during a recent vice presidential debate.
你今天2.5%、3.5%、5%、50%，你也很难拼。但是是不是就算了？当然不是。我们就要集中我们的力量。所以我们一直主张要源头打击，就是我们的飞弹，我们的这个火力要能够打到大陆沿岸的这些基地，海上歼灭。如果你要用船来这个运送 这个官兵的时候，海上就要歼灭你，滩岸主角绝对不能让你上岸。
In recent years, Taiwan has worked towards spending 2.5% of its GDP on its military, with much of that going towards U.S. weapon systems. That effort began in 2016 when incumbent President Tsai Ing-wen of a Democratic Progressive Party took office. With her second and final term ending, analysts say the front-running presidential candidate and current Vice President Lai Ching-te will continue this trend.
When you look at what the DPP has been doing under Tsai Ing-wen and what a Lai Ching-te administration would likely do on defense policy, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of daylight between the two of them. And I also might add that the Taiwanese voters tend to be very suspicious and worried about China and have seen what's gone on in Hong Kong under one country, two systems.
That worry is what's fueling calls from the Taiwan People's Party, or TPP, to spend even more on defense. That was made clear by Vice Presidential candidate Cynthia Wu when she repeated the party's goal of dedicating 3% of the GDP to security and military modernization.
那其实从实体的改革的部分呢，我们是想说，要均朝实战化、专业化、合理化、透明化的方向改革。
Although all three candidates have different plans for Taiwan's defense budget, they all recognize the growing threat from China. Now it's up to voters to decide which approach they want to manage that situation and if their preferred candidate can deter a war in the Taiwan Strait. Luffy Li, Jaime Okan, and Bryn Thomas for TaiwanPlus.
New technology is weaponizing information in modern warfare. Jaime Okan explains how Taiwan can use data to defend itself.
Taiwan's defense strategy relies heavily on missiles. They can take out warships, fighter jets, and incoming enemy troops. The weapons are part of the country's push for an asymmetric advantage over China, which has a much larger military and seeks to bring Taiwan under its control. Asymmetric warfare emphasizes using information for precision strikes on targets that limit wasted ammunition. That's why Taiwan has invested heavily in missiles like these.
Asymmetric defense strategy also requires a lot of sensing capability, right? Because you're going to need to be able to find stuff for your shooters to shoot at.
Analysts say that aside from tanks and fighter jets, Taiwan should be investing more in what's known as ISR. That's information, surveillance, and reconnaissance. And it's the foundation for militaries around the world to get a complete picture of the area they are defending. This approach is critical for tracking enemy movements.
I think about with ISR is less of a deterrent preventative type of utility and more of a real-time targeting and strike capability. That in times of a conflict, if Taiwan has these anti-ship capabilities, if they don't have resilient and reliable ways to find a target, fix on a target, shoot a target, then again, that equipment becomes irrelevant.
ISR systems include satellites, drones, and radars. These can target enemy ships and aircraft, but they can also gather intelligence on broader military activity and share it with friendly countries. This information is critical for making a decision during conflict.
So you need to provide a large scope so the senior leaders can, based on broadband understanding, when they talk to the neighboring countries, they can provide a very objective point of view. It's not only focused on Taiwan.
Taiwan is up against a powerful Chinese military, and the military has been increasingly active in the Asia-Pacific region over the past few years. With improved intelligence gathering, Taiwan can better work with partners like the US, Japan, and Korea to reduce the risk of conflict in the region. Devin Tai and Jaime Okan for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching today's What's Up Taiwan. I'm Ethan Liu. Take care, and I'll see you next time.